So welcome to Kenya Unpacked. My name is Stephanie Schulte. I serve as the Mercy Medical Coordinator for West and Central Africa. And today you're going to hear from Reverend Vance and Linda Becker. Reverend Vance serves at Nema Lutheran College, and as he says, at the wide place in the road called Matango in Kenya. And they're going to tell you about their work there.
Hello. We're happy to be here.
Okay, so we will share our screen now. Yeah.
Okay.
Hello, everyone.
Thanks, Steph.
So do the share screen. Share screen.
Okay, should we go ahead with the presentation, Stephanie? Is that it?
Yep, you guys are on
Okay.
up for bat.
Okay, here we go. We'd like to show you how God is growing his church in Eastern Africa and raising up church workers at Nema Lutheran Theological College, Matango. It's in the hills of Western Kenya, not far from Lake Victoria.
So this is where we live and work, and we serve as missionaries of the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod in partnership with the Evangelical Lutheran Church in Kenya. And we've been in Africa for 2 years now. Before this, I was a Lutheran elementary teacher.
And I was a parish pastor for 37 years. Here in Kenya, there are cities in this region. This is Kasumu, the large city not far from us, but our school is located in a rural area. This is our home. We are right next to the equator, but because we're up in the hills, we enjoy mild weather constantly. The topography of this area might be compared to Appalachia in the US. We're surrounded by small farms growing corn, bananas, other produce such as sukuma wiki, which is something like kale, and that's all sold locally.
And of course, along with cows, goats, and sheep, which wander by our house often. And there are also large fields of tea that this region is known for. And when we go for walks, we walk right through the tea fields.
It seems to me that the farming and the lifestyle in this area are somewhat similar to what it would have been for my grandfather a little over 100 years ago.
But instead of horses for the main transportation, just about everything is used by a motorcycle, and they call them piki-pikis.
The church and its training programs, I would say, are also similar to our Lcms 100 years ago, when pastors were ordained after graduating with a bachelor's degree, and many went to serve parishes of several congregations or even circuit riders. Another similarity to the Lcms at that time is that many congregations here worship in languages other than English. Because many countries in this area were former British colonies, the Episcopal Church has been here for years, as well as the Presbyterians. But the most common type of church in this region are Seventh-day Adventists and various Pentecostal groups. Lutheran Missions began in Kenya by Martin Lundstrom. He was a missionary from Finland, and our newest classroom building is named after him. But most countries here now have their own independent Lutheran church bodies. The Lutheran Church is growing rapidly in Eastern Africa, where the percentage of Christians is already much higher than in the US. As the Lutheran Church grows rapidly, it's common for pastors to serve half a dozen congregations or so. Here is a new congregation that began worshiping just a few weeks ago outdoors. So the need for more pastors and other church workers is great, but there is also a great need for those with enough training and experience to teach them. That's where we come in, as LCMS missionaries working together with our partner churches. We are here on the school steps with some other faculty and students for a school picture. I'm here because I believe it's important for these church workers to have a solid theological foundation that can stand up against the many common influences here, including legalism, theology of glory, decision theology, prosperity gospel, emotionalism, syncretistic spiritualism, etc. But I think it's also important because I expect that the day will come when the church in Africa will again be the center of Christianity, as it was in the first centuries, and will be sending missionaries to other countries, including the United States. Nema Lutheran Theological College is owned and operated by the Evangelical Lutheran Church Kenya. It is its school for training church workers. It's also attended by students from 10 other countries here in Eastern Africa. Very near to us is Nema Lutheran Teachers College, a boys boarding high school sponsored by the church. That means it has a Lutheran chaplain, also a medical center and an orphanage, both operated by the church.
So we live in a duplex on campus. It's one of several homes owned by the Lcms and it has electricity and indoor plumbing, and it's a very beautiful 3-bedroom home. And the other faculty housing and student dormitories are very similar to ours. There are some houses in the community that the people have built, but they built them with the supplies that are found around here, using mud, brick, and dirt, and most houses don't have indoor plumbing.
Now, there are a few houses that are as modern as ours, but this is what's most common. My main duty is teaching. I spend about 15 hours a week in the classroom, teaching classes such as pastoral ministry and counseling, homiletics, which means preaching, Christian doctrine, Lutheran confessions, symbolics, which is comparing different Christian groups, New Testament introduction, and Pauline epistles. I also have some administrative duties as head of the practical ministry department. Another role I have is being dean of chapel. That means I organize student liturgists and preachers. This fits in with my teaching classes on how to preach. Singing in the choir for chapel and areas is not in my job description, but I love singing.
I accompany the choir, and the choir practices 4 times a week. And sometimes we also sing at area churches. They sing for the chapel here on Sundays, and also for chapel on Wednesday mornings. And the people here just love to sing. And I play the piano for daily morning chapel and Sunday worship. And the Sunday worship is for the students of our school and also the Teachers College. And in addition, I teach piano lessons for students. Since they have such busy schedules, I teach more than one of them at a time, and they practice together. I always notice that the personal space is much different here than it is somewhere else, at least in America. A great resource that I use when I'm teaching piano is produced by David's Harp, which is another LCMS recognized service organization. And they have a wonderful resource which uses teaching music as a way to share the gospel. I also collaborate with the worship class teacher to help the men learn to sing the liturgy.
One of my jobs as dean of chapel is teaching catechism instruction for Peter, this student who has not yet been confirmed. One of the examples of the great need for pastors is this man who's expected to go from confirmation to ordination in 3 years. Another job I have is overseeing the internship program. All students do several months of internship in their home area before graduating. These are 2 vicars that I visited in Tanzania. When time allows, I've accepted invitations to preach in area congregations. My sermon is always translated. Many of the people know at least some English, but they usually worship in their local tribal language, although the hymns are often in Swahili.
And so this is usually an all-day affair with a meal served afterwards. It is cooked over a fire by women, and it usually includes a chicken, which might have been running around beforehand, and we've seen that happen many times. And these women right here are the African equivalent of the Lutheran Church basement ladies. When we're in the village churches, I especially enjoy being with the children. In one church, I even felt like Santa Claus because they all wanted a picture of me with their child on my lap. And so they were plopping child after child on my lap. And some of them weren't so happy about that.
The college offers 3 main programs with training at different levels. Pastors get a college level education. but our school is not yet accredited to give bachelor's degrees. They graduate with a diploma or a certificate depending on their level of academic ability. Another program is for evangelists. Because of the shortage of pastors, each congregation may have a man who is an evangelist. He will commonly lead Sunday worship when the pastor is not there most of the time, and do spiritual care, outreach, visitation, etc. Their training is shorter than that for pastors, maybe comparable to a 2-year college degree, and they receive a diploma or certificate depending on their level of academic ability. Those who are able may return and continue studies in the pastoral ministry program.
So another program is training for deaconesses. They also receive diplomas or certificates after 2 years of training. They're trained to do a variety of care ministry, teaching children, working with women's groups, and especially with widows, which is a very important aspect because of the culture here. One thing they do is help organize projects to support themselves for the widows. They work together and find a way to support themselves. These are the deaconesses of the ELCK who recently had a gathering on our campus. I was asked by the principal to be the matron of the deaconesses, which is basically being a dorm mama. In fact, the students often call me Mama Linda, which is a common way of speaking to women my age, and it's a very respectful term. Mothers are highly respected here. On Wednesdays, I lead a Bible study for the deaconesses, and I encourage the women to take turns being the leader for the week. And I enjoy having people come visit me on the porch for a cup of tea. And I found that some of the men even come to the porch and just need to talk to a mama.
A new program here is the Pre-Luther Academy. This is a 3-month program for students who've just finished secondary school, which is like high school, and are waiting to begin college. They don't get a diploma or anything, but they are invited to continue by enrolling in one of the other programs, and sometimes they do. Many of these students came from the church's Project 24 children's homes. Fortunately for me, the teaching here is done in English, which is one of the official languages of Kenya, although not necessarily of all the other countries from which our students come. Our chapel worship is usually in Swahili, and our students will go do their work in many different tribal languages. So language is one of the main challenges of the work here. For the students, English is a 3rd or 4th language. Some know it well, while others do not. And even when they do, accents can make it as hard for them to understand me as it is for me to understand them.
Along with language, educational backgrounds vary. Local primary and secondary schools are very basic, and so some of our students may enter with what is equivalent to an 8th grade education. Depending on their background and grades, these students enter into the certificate or diploma programs, but they're often mixed in the same class with those of more ability. And one semester, I taught the basic English class for the new students here.
Another challenge is books and materials. Matango has the best Lutheran library in Africa. But as I prepared to teach classes, I quickly learned that for almost all of them, there are maybe 1 or 2 copies of the textbook in the library. So one of my projects has been using the Lcms Africa Education Fund to buy multiple copies of textbooks and some books which can be given to students, which are then brought over in suitcases of those who are coming to Kenya because it's so expensive to ship them. Dr. Walter Steele, a fellow LCMS educator here, is also using this fund to provide students with Greek and Hebrew Bibles. One of the surprises for me is how many students who come here have no Bible. I've gotten some inexpensive Bibles that I bought in bulk, and so then I sell them to students for $1 a piece, which is about as much as many of them can afford. There is another LCMS mission fund that provides the Lutheran Study Bible to pastoral students. Linda and I have decided we're going to provide them for the evangelist and deaconess students also. But always bringing books from America is expensive and time-consuming. Another project of mine has been writing booklets for the classes I teach, which I have printed locally, and it's pretty cheap. I try to write them in basic common language for those who are not so familiar with English. Sometimes students who are not in my classes want them too, so I sell them to them for $1. Another challenge for the students, and so for the school, is finances. Most students have very little money themselves. The plan is for their churches to support them and their families and pay their school fees, but this often does not happen, especially for those who are from small rural churches. So this is another thing that limits the number of those studying for the ministry.
So since the deaconesses are often unpaid, they're taught to sew so they can support themselves. So I helped coordinate a grant from the LWML, which provides a treadle sewing machine for each deaconess when she graduates. One of their projects is sewing and embroidering stoles, which are sold to pastoral students. And most of the students coming from other countries, and some of those from Kenya, are sponsored by the Lcms Church, the Lcms and other Lutheran groups. And these are the Lcms sponsored students that are here this year. It's quite a crowd. Those sponsored by the Lcms also get help with another challenge, which is health. It is not uncommon for us to be driving a student an hour to the doctor to Kasumu for problems ranging from needing eyeglasses to having an appendix removed. I'm not a teacher. I am a teacher. I'm not a nurse, but I'm able to help with some basic things like a mother would do, like give them aspirin or chicken soup when they're feeling sick. And one thing I can also do is I bought a blood pressure monitor kit. And so those who need to monitor their blood pressure on a regular basis come visit me and we monitor their blood pressure. Another challenge, along with finances, is family and the duties that go along with that. Some of our students are fairly old because this is a second career. The majority of students here have spouses and children who are all still back at their home place. They don't travel here. There's no place for any family members to live. So some of our students are also already serving as pastors, and even though they don't have a degree, but they leave those parishes for a while so that they can study here. Deaconess students have they leave their children in the care of other family members for the years that they're in school here. Men leave their families, depending on the congregation and extended family, to help them with their crops and livestock and to provide for them in other ways. Sometimes there are problems which can cause a student to drop out of school, but it's not uncommon for them because they're taking care of things at home that keep them from arriving on time, or sometimes they miss classes during the semester as they travel home and back to take care of problems at home.
Yes, we're just about to begin the third semester of school third week of school, yes, of this semester. And most of the students are back. We're still waiting for some. But it takes a lot of dedication for our students to overcome all of these challenges, knowing that when they graduate, the pastors will get paid little and the evangelists and deaconesses will probably be paid nothing at all. They're going to continue to support themselves and their families as they serve the church. What a blessing it is for us to be able to serve them, because we are provided for by the generous people of the LCMS. If you are interested in supporting this particular work, you can go online to lcms.org/Becker, where you'll see ways you can contribute. If you're interested in seeing more of what's happening here, we'd be happy to send you our monthly newsletter and our weekly mission message videos. To request this, or if you have other questions or other things you want to contact us about, you can just email vance.becker@lcms.org.
Thank you so much, Pastor Becker and Linda. You guys did such a good job. It's so interesting. I learned a lot, and I've been in Africa a long time. I just want to encourage all of our participants to go ahead and subscribe to the Becker's newsletter. And we're going to drop a link that you can just click on. It'll take you right there, and you can go ahead and do that. You can also follow LCMS International Missions on social media. We've got both an Instagram page and a Facebook page. And those links will also be dropped into the chat. And then I want to encourage everyone to join us again next Saturday, February 12th at 11 a.m. Central Time, so the same time as this one started. And the presenters next week for Germany Unpacked will be Reverend Christian Teves and his wife. Okay, that's all the business. Now, if anybody has any questions, go ahead and drop those into the chat or the Q&A. Pastor Becker and Linda can't see them, so I will convey those to them, any questions that you all have. Let me see, there are some things here. Okay.
While you're looking at that, can I say hi, Mama?
You certainly can. Okay, so Jenny Hannell is asking, recently I heard of Christians in Kenya being persecuted. Do you feel safe where you are?
We are very safe. Okay, my mother is listening, and I'm telling the truth. Yes, that is unfortunately especially true, I think, in Western Africa. You may know more about that. And there are certain areas around here, but Kenya is quite a safe country. We are on the west side, where it's even more safe. Yeah, we're very safe here.
And I would say it's people look up to you when you say you are a Christian. When people talk to us and ask us why we're here, we'll say, well, my husband's teaching at a theological college. Oh, that's so wonderful. Welcome here. And so being a Christian is, at least in the area we're in, is really looked up to and encouraged and admired.
Yeah, this is a predominantly Christian area here.
That's awesome. We've got another question from Gretchen Rasmussen. Where are you all from in the US, and how many other LCMS missionaries are working with you at the college?
Okay, well, we're basically from the Midwest. We spent most of our ministry in Minnesota, which is a wonderful place to live, but right now we're appreciating not living in the snow. And
yeah, I grew up in Southwest Kansas, Garden City. We got some people there.
Yeah.
And you grew up all over.
Yeah, Idaho, Kentucky, as I was growing up. But once we've been married, basically Midwest.
Yeah. Now, other LCMS missionaries, yes, there is another couple here at the college. Dr. Walter Steele is another theological educator here.
And his wife, Robin.
Yeah. And every now and then there have been others who, for one reason or another, have spent a semester or a while here, even though they're primarily in other countries.
Okay, great. Another question from Tori. What major adjustments did you encounter when you were transitioning to African culture?
I would say one of the things that's a big thing here is greeting. And so reminding myself as an American, I just want to jump in and ask a question, like, okay, let's get going. What time is this? Or where are we going? And even in a grocery store, I need to remember saying, well, how are you? Hello, how is your family? And like when the person comes to deliver our milk, we'll have a few questions back and forth before we get to the real business. And for a direct American, that was something I had to keep reminding myself. And I'm getting better at it, but I'm still not always as appropriate probably as I should be. I'm more direct.
Yeah. If you're talking about adjustment to African culture, I would say that one of the things that's different is they have an entirely different attitude about time. Relationships are more important than time. So showing up on time is just not a priority at all, even though the principal and they're always saying, keep time, which means show up on time. If the question was about adjustments to being a missionary, the most difficult transition for me of all was at my age, learning all the technology I've got to learn to do this job, like doing Zoom meetings.
But you're doing great. Okay, Annette Schluter is asking, does general aviation play a role in East Africa? I don't know if you all know anything about that organization.
I have heard of it, and I would say not here that I know of. The the roads are much better than an airport would be. So transportation is mostly by road. And they've improved significantly in recent years, I think.
Even just since we've been here, when
Yeah.
we first came, the road was horrible, and now it's a very, pretty much all minus one small stretch, very good road.
Yeah, and the other difference would be that the flying is more expensive than traveling by road. So yeah, we don't encounter that in this area.
Okay. Tom is wondering, do you partner with Orphan Grain Train for shipping materials or Lutheran Heritage Foundation for books?
We do get some books from Lutheran Heritage Foundation. They have an office here in Kenya. I think their Eastern African office is here in Kenya.
It's in Nairobi.
In Nairobi. In fact, their main representative is going to be visiting here on campus in a little bit.
Yeah, in March. Yeah.
And Orphan Grain Train, no, although, that's an idea because there's so many books I'd like to get here, but it doubles the price of a book to try to ship it over.
And there might be things happening that we don't know about because we're just in our own little area here.
Yeah.
But for instance, the Lutheran Bible translators, they have what would I say, a graphic novel type of the Bible. And I have gotten that and distributed that to the Deaconesses and encouraged them to use that with their students, with their children when they're back in their congregation. So we have used their resources.
Awesome. So Bonnie Hartman, just a little aside, Bonnie has been to Sierra Leone on a Mercy medical team. So she's got a question for you. How long is the Deaconess program? Well, she's got 3 questions. I'll ask all 3 and then you can respond. Are Deaconesses welcomed in their home communities? And does their home church continue to support them?
Okay.
I think, first of all, I think the Deaconess program is 2 years plus an internship.
Well,
You know that?
it depends on whether a certificate
Oh,
or a
okay.
diploma. I think the diploma is a 3-year program plus an internship. The certificate might be a 2-year plus an internship. Are they welcome? I think they most certainly are.
Yes. Yeah, it seems like when we've gone visiting churches and then we have seen some of the deaconesses in action in the church, and they are very busy and doing very useful work. I can tell that the pastors appreciate their help as well. So they're getting help from I don't know if you call them administration, but the other workers. And you can tell that the congregation really appreciates what they do. One place that I was so impressed with, like I kind of alluded to, that when you become a widow here, it's different than being a widow in the United States. Your finances and everything, you're dependent upon your husband's family. And sometimes it's just different being a widow here. And so the Deaconesses have a great program where they do various activities to help mentor the widows and to help them work as a group together to raise funds for them. One church even had the widows all work together and they do things like they have a garden, they rent out tables, they rent out tents, they raise chickens, they sell eggs, and then they take all this money, and it's a great community building because the women are working together as they do this. They pool that money, and then when one of the widows is struggling, the money goes to them. So they're not, I always like how they're not looking for a handout. They're working to build the whole community up. And that's a really cool role that I think is done with a lot of the Deaconesses. That's one of their major, it feels like, I might be wrong, but it just feels like it's one of their big roles.
Yeah, at least the ones we're familiar with. You asked about support. If that means financial support, I don't get the impression there's actually any financial support. In fact, when they make visits, they're expected to bring money and things for the people they visit.
Oh boy. Okay, here's another question for you from Jenny Hannell. Are the library books in English or in the native language? And do all of you talked about this a little bit, but do all of your students have a good level of speaking and understanding English?
Yeah, the library books are, I think, almost entirely English. There's a few Swahili. The thing is, there is not a whole lot of Lutheran material. There's some is being translated in Swahili, but yeah, the library books, the textbooks, it's English. One reason is because English is the common language, that is shared among, different groups. So we teach in English. Do all of our students have a good grasp of English? No, no. I've had students who can barely understand English. And it's real challenging, which is why I always try to just use the simplest, most common words I can. And not a lot of theological books are written in that kind of language. In fact, even we use the ESV Bible, that's the most common, a lot of words in there. They just don't know those words.
Yeah, like for instance, on Wednesday in my Bible study, we were studying Romans this semester, and we were discussing one of the verses, and none of them knew the word wrath, which is not surprising. They don't know that, but it makes a big difference if you don't know the meaning of that word. But fortunately, at least for me, I've noticed that if they don't know a word, they're not afraid to say, "What is that? Tell me that." They don't sit there quietly. I don't know if that's the same in a classroom. It's a little different situation. And the other thing is for English is I have tried to avail myself to say, you know what, I'm here. I'm a former reading teacher. So if you need help, come find me. So I keep trying to put that out there that I'm available to help.
Yeah. The other faculty here, they know Swahili, which helps some, but we have students from countries where they don't speak Swahili at all. So
I would say most of the students have a very good grasp of English. Most of them do.
Most of them.
Yeah, it's so.
Just a few here and there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Karen, Kaya is wondering, how is your relationship with the other Christian denominations there in your area? She's known Kenyans studying at university where she is, and was surprised to learn that they were Seventh-day Adventists, for example.
Yeah, well, as I mentioned before, Seventh-day Adventism is one of the most common religions here. Pentecostalism, I would say, probably is equal to that. Relationships, as a teacher here, we don't have Seventh-day Adventist or Pentecostal students, so I don't know directly. I get the impression from the way students talk that the attitude in Africa is you pretty much, get along, work together, that sort of thing. Which is why I have to caution them against, there's sort of the expectation in communities of, joint worship and things like that Lutherans are, like us, are not so comfortable with. Christians, I'd say there's not a lot of tension and animosity between Christian groups. Although there is a recognition, I think, among our students that the Seventh-day Adventists, we don't buy into that.
I thought it was interesting, though. Earlier, Vance mentioned that they don't all have Bibles, and one of the students was traveling home. He lives fairly close here on Sundays to work with his congregation, and he didn't have a Bible, so he borrowed the Seventh-day Adventist Bible because he didn't need it on Sundays. So that's kind of a cool collaboration there.
Bonnie Hartman is asking, what is the better way to support the various programs that you mentioned? Is it best to give the money through LCMS missions, or should people just buy stuff in the US and ship it directly to you? And then she's also wondering if volunteer programs like short-term teams have resumed since the pandemic, which would mean more travelers with more suitcases.
Okay. I would say by far the best way is to send the money to LCMS missions, because shipping is so expensive, and then it can be used to buy the particular books we need, like textbooks, for example. Well, you want them all to be the same. And the specific books that we need, and in quantity where you can get discounts, and so we can coordinate shipping, carrying them over, and that sort of thing. I would say maybe you can answer the question yourself about the short-term and volunteer mission teams. My understanding is that they're starting again. In fact, there's an agricultural ministry couple missionary here right now, I think. So it is starting back up.
Yeah, that's true. We're slowly but slowly getting back into that. So all navigating all the restrictions is a new thing for everybody, but we'll figure it out. Gretchen Rasmussen says her son would like to know, what are some of your favorite local foods?
Oh, well, my favorite local food is, it's called chicken choma, and it's basically a good piece of chicken that's been, I don't know that it's been flash burned or whatever, but it's choma means fire. So it's a really delicious chicken. I like that.
Yeah, I like fish, and fishing is one of the things that's done here in Lake Victoria. We've got to mention the fruit though.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we've got a banana tree growing in our front yard. We've got a avocado tree that we've planted. Mangoes are growing. You know, lots of fruit around here, and we enjoy that.
Yeah, really good fresh fruit and delicious chicken eggs, because you know what, the chickens here are free range, so their eggs are really delicious.
Yeah, well, and the milk, we have milk delivered to our door every morning. It's still warm.
Yeah.
And it's
I do pasteurize it, so
yeah,
don't.
yeah, it's good milk.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Oh, here's another question coming up. Okay, they're asking again, what was your biggest adjustment upon arriving in Kenya 2 years ago? Linda, you mentioned the long greetings, and Vance, you mentioned the time aspect. Is there anything else that kind of sticks out?
Well, you say 2 years ago, when we first came, we were sent to Tanzania, and we were there for several months to learn Swahili. And at our age, oh, that was not easy. And one of the things there and here also is getting used to the fact that electricity and water are luxuries not to be taken for granted, because you don't always have it. That and internet.
Yes, but we've learned to adjust, and it's amazing how, you know, you can actually live quite a while without electricity, and we have big, huge water tanks. And so when you have the resources, it doesn't have to come from a pipe. You can have it in your backyard. So we're doing fine. It was just the part of it was just the mental adjustment of saying, oh, okay, I really don't need this.
Right. Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit about your time in at Swahili school, because it got extended by this worldwide event that seemed to happen?
Yes. Yeah, we were in Tanzania and that's when COVID hit. And so we were asked, okay, are you going to be okay staying here? Because you're not, in a few weeks, the borders will close and you won't be leaving. And we decided we felt very, very safe there. We were under the care of some missionaries, not LCMS missionaries, but missionaries, 4 generations of missionaries, but they were American background. So
they had a camp. We were staying at this camp out in the countryside.
And it was a beautiful camp. We were very safe. No one else was there. The cook stayed. And so people kept saying, are you okay? Are you okay? It's like, oh, we're doing really well here. But yeah, we were anxious to get to Kenya. So we were very happy. We were there 8 months. We were supposed to be there 3. We were there 8 months.
Yeah. Picture going, thinking, oh, I'm going to pack to go somewhere for 3 months. And you're there 8.
Well,
yeah. No, we were very safe. The catch was, because of COVID shutdowns, our teachers weren't able to come out anymore. And so we did the last half of our Swahili training by phone, which is not the best way to learn a language.
Yeah. So, but anyway, yeah. The thing is, in Kenya too, since English is one of it's their primary language, their English in the community is so good that I guess fortunately for us, because we're not that good at Swahili, that we can survive without being able to speak. You know, we know enough to be able to greet people and pick up a few words, but to carry on a conversation, we can't do that. And even in the village here, people will switch to English right away.
As soon as they hear our Swahili, they switch to English.
Well, the other thing is Kenya has, I don't know how many different tribal languages. So actually the people here, I've been told that the people that live nearby, they speak Ekagusi. And then when they go to school, they speak English, and they also learn Swahili. And so actually their English may even be better than their Swahili, because their primary language is a tribal language.
Yeah, that's here. Students from other countries, Swahili is their primary language.
Yeah, it depends on.
Gotcha. Can you talk a little bit more? You mentioned the student who arrived at Matango or at Nema and needs to be confirmed, and then he's going to be moving right on to ordination. Can you talk about that happening in such a short time, and what makes that challenging but not impossible?
Okay. This is a student. He is very intelligent, well-educated, articulate, knows his Bible very well. My understanding is he grew up Catholic, but then his family began going to a Pentecostal church, so he's got sort of both in his background. But he started going to the Lutheran church, decided to be part of that. Very quickly, the pastor identified him as somebody who would be a good leader, and he was interested in pastoral ministry. And so they sent him here to school before he even got confirmed. So it's been very interesting talking with him. At first there were a lot of ideas. I said, no, we need to talk about that. I think, once he, figures out some things that's different about Lutheranism from Pentecostalism and other things he just sort of assumed, well, isn't this the way it is? He's going to be a good, strong pastor. Yeah, he's already taking classes. He can learn Greek and Hebrew and stuff like that. But he's looking forward to confirmation. We've got about 4 lessons left.
Sounds like a bright student. Wow.
Oh yes, yeah. He's one of the sharper guys around.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Somebody is asking, you asked which other countries. What do you mean?
Oh,
Which other countries have students?
Yes. Okay, there's 11.
Can we list them?
We'll see.
Kenya, Rwanda.
Now, these are the countries that are sending students to study
Yes.
at Nema?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, Rwanda, Uganda, Tanzania, South Sudan, Ethiopia,
Malawi. We might not get them all.
I'm trying to think of my Africa geography. Starts with G. Where's my atlas?
Not from Ghana? You don't have students
No,
No.
we don't really have West Africa.
You see, West Africa, I think we have had some students for there. They speak primarily French, and so that doesn't work very well for them to come here. But it's mostly the English-speaking areas. I'm getting my Africa map in front of me to help jog my memory about the nearby countries.
Those are the main countries with the. There are a few more.
Yeah, we can
If
take
you
another
guys have-
question in a minute.
Do you have a student from Burundi and
That's it. That's what I was
okay.
trying to say. Burundi.
Okay,
Yeah.
Let's see, does anybody have any more questions? We've kind of run through the ones that were in the, wait a minute. Oh. Nope, we answered that one. You guys mentioned, I'm just curious, you mentioned that chicken choma that you like to eat so much. What do you guys at home normally eat? Do you eat African
I eat whatever she
food?
cooks.
Yeah, and we go grocery shopping once a week. To go grocery shopping, it takes about an hour or an hour and a half to drive there. So getting groceries is a day experience.
That's
and-
Kasumu, that city picture I showed you.
Yep. So
okay.
but the grocery stores, It's amazing. I did not expect this. There are 4 malls there. And with grocery stores, and Kasumu has a fairly large expat community, I believe. And so there's at least one grocery store you can tell caters to expats. And so there's a lot of imported foods. There are some things we can't find, but really most of the things that I would want to fix, I find. I do find though that I cook from scratch a lot more. I bake my own bread now. When we lived in the US, I would sometimes do it, but I do it all the time. I make my own granola. I make my own yogurt.
Ice cream?
Yeah, I even learned how to make ice cream without an ice cream maker. So, anyway, I can make, a lot of things. If it takes a specialty ingredient, we don't have it. But food at our house is, a person would think it's an American food. Yeah, so.
It sounds like things like preparing meals and things like that takes a little bit longer there than in the US.
Yes, it does. And I find, I thought, oh, what am I going to do with my time? Because I don't have a teaching schedule like Vance does. But I find I cook, when you're cooking from scratch, and we can't, like if one night I don't feel like cooking, well, then we don't eat. I mean, I have to cook because it's not like you can do takeout, and there's not a place that we feel would be safe for us to go. We don't want to get, we don't know. I'm sure there's places we could eat, but we basically only eat out when we're in Kasumu or Kericho or Nairobi. And so, yes, I cook a lot.
American stomachs are probably not ready for locally cooked food.
Yeah.
So. Although when we've gone to churches and the ladies cook a dinner, we've never had any problem.
Yeah, we eat the local food when we go to a church meal, and that's always prepared. I mean, you can't get chicken any fresher than we get it at a church dinner. My dad used to talk about picking vegetables and say, these were growing 5 minutes ago. Well, we eat chicken that was running around 5 minutes ago.
Well, because see, there's no refrigeration here. And so depending on the size of your group, and so people won't have meat very often. Mm-hmm. It's just when you have a special occasion, you got enough people to eat a whole chicken, you eat the chicken. If you had a really big thing, like a wedding or something like that, you'd have a goat. So those are the common foods. The thing that's most common here, and people can't imagine not eating this every day, several times a day, is ugali. That is corn that's ground up and boiled. In the pictures we were showing the church dinner, they were cooking and eating ugali. It's been described as about the consistency of Play-Doh. And that's the main thing to eat.
Yes, and they don't use silverware, and so they use it. I'm fascinated watching them. They'll take a chunk of this, and then they'll just move their hand around and make a little bowl and scoop the soup and then eat the whole thing. And it was interesting. One time a student came to our house and his wife, and I was just walking out on the porch, and there he is, and I'm putting dinner on the table. I thought, okay, got to invite him for dinner. Can't just sit here. And so, they sat and ate with us. And she said afterwards, that was the first time she'd ever used a fork.
Wow.
And I would not have known that if she didn't say that, because I did not see I saw no hesitation or even any fumbling, but they eat that. Ugali is that's their silverware.
Yeah, that's what they feel. When we were at language camp, our language teacher would ask us about America. And she said, oh, I could never visit America because,
I eat with my hands. What would people think?
What would people think? She said, I'd starve. And I told her, I said, no worries. Go to fast food. You eat all that stuff with your hands.
Yep. Dale Trapp is wondering, do you all have TV available? And if so, what kind of shows do people watch? What's on the local TV?
Well, and this is the way we were in the US too. We don't have a TV, but there is a TV up in the student lounge.
Yeah, they like watching TV.
And you can tell they're just watching various shows. When we happen to be like in a doctor's office or something, you see the
African soap operas.
African soap operas. It looks just like an American soap opera, except motorcycles driving around, and they're, that's what we
They're in
see.
Africa.
The news, there is a lot of news
There's a
on.
TV in the faculty lounge, and they like watching news.
Mhm.
And I think the students like watching sports.
Yeah.
And then there's some programs in the evening. I think they're probably something like, American dramas or whatever.
Yeah.
It's oftentimes in Swahili, so I don't know.
Yeah, since it is in Swahili, we haven't sat in there and watched, but.
So when you mention sports, what are the predominant sports there?
Football, not American football.
Yeah.
We call it soccer, but that's the students in the afternoons. The guys will play soccer, and
And volleyball.
they play volleyball. Yeah, they got a volleyball net they'll play.
The men play soccer, men and women play volleyball. I'm trying to think if I've ever seen a woman playing soccer. I don't think I have, but the men and women will play volleyball together.
I saw one of them kicking the soccer ball.
Okay, well, good.
And the boys' high school next door, they've got, I think it's a basketball court.
And the other thing is, when we walk around, there's a place down here, which I thought was kind of cool. They have like your local place to watch sports, and they have a big chalkboard up, and it would say this afternoon at 3, and they're showing the game.
Manchester United, they've got soccer shows they show. So
soccer is big here.
Yeah, apparently he's gotten a TV, he's got reception, so he sells admission to come watch football.
Interesting. Not anybody have any more questions? I think we've hit most of the ones that have been asked. Oh, wait, hang on. Never mind. Reverend Sam Weissman is wondering, what is your elevation and what temperatures do you mean by fairly mild?
What is the elevation
I
here?
think the elevation is 3,000 or 4,000 feet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. When we go down to Kasumu for shopping, it gets hot because that's down on Lake Victoria.
And humid.
Yeah, hot and humid.
Okay.
Up here, okay, American temperatures, I would say, because we're Fahrenheit and here they're Celsius.
Between 60 and 80.
Yeah, between 60 and 80. In the morning, I wear a suit coat, like the chaplain for my first couple hours of class. By 10, I'm ready to take it off. I wear long sleeves, partly because we're on the equator. This is direct sun. And when we go for walks, we try to go for walks in the morning when it's cooler.
Mhm.
But even in the afternoon, and it's never like, oh, I'm hot. I mean, if you're standing in the sun, it's hot. But if you're inside, I'm comfortable. I'm just comfortable in a long sleeve. Well, sometimes a t-shirt or a long sleeve shirt.
But what I find interesting, and of course, we're from Minnesota, so 60 to 80 is like, that's really balmy. But especially when we were first here, I was just wearing a short sleeve shirt because I was used to, it felt warm to me. And the students would be wearing like a winter coat, and a lot of times they'll have a stocking cap on, and they're like, oh, and they call me Madame. Oh, Madame, it is so cold here. And even now, my blood is thinning, I can tell, because I'll put a sweater on in the morning now. But the students most of them are from an area where they're used to 100, 110 degrees, hotter. And so they think it's cold here, but we Minnesotans think it's really, really nice, 60 to 80.
We're dressed like this most of the time because the temperature, it doesn't change a whole lot, or year round, it's pretty mild. But like we have choir practice after supper, and the students, they'll come in winter coats and stocking caps.
Yeah. We don't even own
it. Is quite a change for them, for hundreds to
Yeah.
When we were in Tanzania at language camp, I was cold there.
Well, it was cold there.
Because that was a little higher.
Mhm.
Okay.
Here, what I tell people is it's perpetual springtime.
Well, that gives a good feeling of what it would be like. Yeah. Jenny Hanel just wanted to say it's so wonderful to see your smiles and enthusiasm for all you're doing. What a witness.
Oh,
Yeah.
Tell her thanks. It is such a joy to be here. I'll be honest, when Vance first said he wanted to be a missionary, I thought, oh, I don't know if I can do this, but God knew where to send us. And this is a place where we both fit in, and we're both feeling like what the gifts God has given us, we are able to use. And, God knows what he's doing.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
You can tell when we talk about the weather here, we are just having such a rough life. All the sacrifices of being a missionary.
Well, Tom is wondering, is there adequate clean water and food in your area? I'm
Okay.
thinking he's talking about for the local people.
Yeah, because for us, we have borehole water, and technically people can just drink that. We do filter it anyway, just to be sure. But of course, we have good water. The water, that we see people getting water out of muddy streams. It's really hard to see that. And hopefully they're boiling it, and yeah.
Food. I think there are somewhere else down by the elementary school.
Yeah.
There is a well, but we see people, washing their clothes and getting water out of a little stream there. And where you're seeing, kids carrying 5-gallon buckets of water on their head because they don't have running water. They have to go get the water, bring it home. That's a daily thing you got to keep doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I would say food. Was food one of the other questions?
Yes.
Yes. I would say that right now, from what we're seeing, this is not an area where there's starvation. There's chickens running around, so that means that no one's grabbing them to kill them. And they've got banana trees. It's a cooking banana, so it tastes kind of like potatoes when they cook it. And they grow all their own crops, and right now it's pretty dry. So hopefully that will continue.
Yeah.
That food will be continuing, but I don't think at the area we're in, they're doing okay for that.
Yeah, we're in a farming area. Now we have students from other areas, like north, where cattle grazing and stuff. I get more arid areas where, with climate change, the rains are not reliable. Some places are having drought and famine. Their cattle are dying. They can't keep them alive, and people are worried here. We saw somebody plowing today. It's supposed to be the beginning of rainy season, but it isn't really raining yet. And I think they're thinking, do I dare plant? Do I not plant? And if I don't plant, what are we going to eat?
But I will say that this is another thing that has really impressed me with people in the area. Like I said earlier, it's a very Christian area, and people are not afraid to talk about their faith and affirm their faith. And the attitude is God will provide.
Mm-hmm.
And I hear that over, we worry so much, at least me as an American, I worry about this and that. And it's like, you know what? God will provide. And our gatekeeper, Charles, is so good. He says, God knows what we need. He'll give it to us when we need it. And that is an attitude that I keep trying to instill in myself.
That's such a great witness. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They are. Yeah.
That's awesome. Sharon Haberkamp is wondering, how are your grandchildren? How was your Christmas with them? She says, I'm sure it's hard to leave them when you went back to Kenya. And it's only 6 above here in Hutchinson. Good.
Yes, we know.
0 days.
Hi, Sharon. I taught with Sharon. I know. Anyway, yes. So we're enjoying the warm weather. It was hard to leave the grandchildren, but we're thankful that we can see them on WhatsApp and connect with them. So, and we're really thankful we were able to go home and that nobody got COVID, so we could travel. You never know, something can happen. Or anyway, our vacation, our time home was wonderful.
I fuss about having to learn the technology, but with WhatsApp and pictures, and she's after the kids. If they don't send grandkid pictures at least every other day,
I need my grandma
and videos, and our grandson will say, hey, let's, when he wants to procrastinate, well, let's call grandma. So we can talk online, and we had a great time seeing when we were home.
Yeah.
Good. Cheryl Schmidt is wondering, what kinds of critters do you have? Do you have poison snake?
Well, Okay, actually the critter that we have in our house that I actually like to see is a gecko, and they run around and they are our friends, and they startle me sometimes when I'll move a curtain and they'll dash out. But they eat up all the insects, and so whenever we see a gecko, we're really happy.
We've pretty much gotten used to seeing ants crawling around. All right, yeah, they're just everywhere.
yeah. And ants and spiders. The spiders here in the US, often I would not kill spiders because they're your friends. But here I'm a little more leery, so I do kill the spiders.
You didn't like the huge ones in Tanzania?
No, they were huge.
How big were they?
Like this big around.
Oh,
but they were called wall spiders. I guess they were harmless, but they were too big.
Yeah.
Luckily here, it's not like when we were in Tanzania, there were snakes and those kind of things. But here we haven't really seen anything.
And I don't know, maybe, but
and a mouse occasionally.
Yeah, other places I've been in East Africa too, see the snakes come out at night. And so they said, well, you just don't go out at night. I mean, just don't do that. Anyway, why would you? It's dark. Where we live, we've been places where you can see the elephants, all that kind of stuff. They don't have that here. What we have here is cows, goats, dogs that wander around. I don't know if there's anybody's dog in particular. If you feed them, they're your dog. A cat or two.
Yeah. When we're up in the tea fields, when we drive, sometimes we'll see monkeys, but the monkeys aren't around here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because this is a farming. Farmers don't like monkeys.
No.
They're basically the African version of raccoons. No, we don't want those around.
yeah. Well, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap things up. We've answered all the questions, but I just want to encourage everyone again to go ahead and sign up for the Becker's newsletters. And if you didn't know, they do Mission Minute videos. How often do you guys do those? Every week?
Every week.
Except for the week that the newsletter comes out.
Gotcha. And they're so interesting, and you can learn a lot of cultural information through those. Are there any last minute things you guys want to tell everybody, or?
I just want to tell people thank you for showing up, and thank you for praying for us. That is the most important thing. So please keep praying. We appreciate your prayers, and also send us an email and let us know what you're up to. Even if you don't really know us, it's fun to just hear what people are up to in the United States. So send us a chatty letter and say, this is what I'm doing today.
Yeah. And I will say, when we were, first beginning and doing support raising, we told people, we've got a spare bedroom, come visit us. Well, okay, in a couple of weeks, we're going to have our very first visitor. Our son and his wife are coming.
Yay.
But outside of that, it's still there. And so we can welcome visitors.
Awesome. Well, many people are sending you thank yous, and what a wonderful presentation you did. So you guys, I knew you were going to knock it out of the park, and you did. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, everybody.